service and not say that you're going to save time with rapids, because in some cases the spacing is wrong, the trip operating time is wrong, and even though the rapid may go a few minutes faster, you end up losing time because you're waiting for the bus and missing your stop. So he's finally looking at this intelligently, and they found something like 12 lines in the rapid that aren't hitting any of these performance criteria in terms of time savings or other types of issues, and they may be rapid lines that are subject to retirement.
Elimination, really?
Yes, yes, and that's going to be coming in the budget in December. So what Metro has actually been talking about is not actually cutting the local service, but like, for example, I took a LA Times reporter, we took a trip down Van Nuys Boulevard at 6 in the morning. Now in the past, at 6 in the morning to 7 in the morning, you'd have bus over bus, standing rides, pass-ups, everything else. On all the buses that we were on, we never got over 50% load factor on any of the buses. When we got off the bus, buses were going by at Van Nuys and Ventura, a peak point to go over the hill, and nothing was over 30% capacity. So it seemed to indicate to me that at one point in time when ridership was really high during the gas crisis, we had enough service, but right now it seems to me that we may have surplus service on certain routes, and Metro doesn't evaluate every 6 months and reduce or add service. They just let it stay empty for years or overcrowded for more years. So it's a strange way of doing business. A bit more effective on some of the properties like Long Beach Transit.
When I worked at Metro, I did that.
Yeah.
Added trips.
Yeah. The problem is they never took any trips out. And then the trips that you did add in that were useful, like the late night trips in Sepulveda, the moment you disappeared, left the agency, they ripped out these trips that people were using at the middle of the night, midnight. The bus boys had a way to get home from work. Anyway, so back to this thing, the 714 is one of the examples here, and then some of these other routes that aren't doing really well for performance.
You'll notice if you see the map that the proposed Torrance Transit Rapid is still there, and I'd just like to say, yeah, we are still working on it.
There was some technicality involving the 733 coming first.
All right, well anyways, we're almost out of time, so. On the Exposition Light Rail Transit Project, this is the actual report where a lot of, some of the pictures, if you go to the Transit Coalition discussion board, you'll see the latest pictures from Justin and from Gokin and from Daryl Clark. And the stub end of the station, you can still see it was there on my way in from the Blue Line today, so I don't know when they're gonna extend the service across Washington, but at least the junction's been installed. Lots of other things are happening, like with the Ariel Station. Ken was asking the Bents number 13 through 15.
Yeah, those things.
Venice and Robertson, the Ariel structure. The new contractor, Balfour Beatty, is going to be finishing that station, and they're doing design build, and that's the one where they're going to get the bonus. There's still major issues about the schedule, the project budget, the design build procurement, and third-party coordination. So that pretty much gives the big level report. Just a few other things, and Tom, thank you very much, as always. We've already done pretty much the stuff that we need to do with Metrolink. We did a little bit of Coast Starlight. We talked about high-speed rail. We talked about Expo, with the big meeting being next Tuesday. So I think, unless anybody has any added questions or anything. All right, let Fairmars ask the question here second. Fairmars?
I have two questions. One, are folks aware of the survey that Amtrak California has put out there for the design of new rail cars to replace the Californian and Surfliner cars? Because the deadline to provide comment for that to go online and do the survey is May 28th, which is, I guess, this Friday. So just as an FYI. Also, I had a question for you, Bart. I am an avid reader of your weekly emails, and I noticed that there was a reference in one of the articles that was listed in that email to some meetings that were held on the west side regarding the West Side Subway extension.
Yes.
And apparently, I guess, at one of the meetings last week, there was discussion that the Westwood stop may be more likely to wind up at a UCLA-owned lot north of Wilshire rather than at the intersection of Wilshire-Westwood. I'm just wondering, did discussion of the 405 corridor come up in that meeting? Because if we are to run the 405 corridor line through UCLA and Westwood, where that Westwood station is for the Wilshire subway is going to have a material impact.
Right now, I don't know if anybody was at the meeting. Ken Rubin, okay, you were at the meeting?
I went to those meetings.
And
So
Justin
was,
was, so
Justin,
they, some of the guys may be able to answer your question.
I don't remember, you and Justin, you wanna take it?
Well, I did that recent work to study the feasibility of rail over the Sepulveda Pass, either on the freeway or as a detour, and I presented my findings to David Meager, who is the head of planning for the West Side Subway Project. And while that project didn't specifically pertain to the location of a Westwood station or a Century City station, it was discussed there. And this meeting was more about the alignment between the two stations, so they considered an option between each of the two station pairs, so 4 different combinations of alternatives. And station choice, whether it's the on-street Wilshire Boulevard station or the off-street UCLA parking lot 36 option, is going to be determined. I think they said it will eventually be a Metro board decision when they take it to the Metro board to approve the draft EIR this summer. So they're still looking at both, and I've done my best to make sure they are aware of the implications of such a choice on a Sepulveda Pass rail line.
Good. I just think it's important to remind folks, not just Metro, because Metro is aware of it, but also public stakeholders, that we're not just looking at one line in isolation. We need to take a whole systems approach that we're trying to build a long-term network, and we need to make sure all the elements of the system are designed to be at least somewhat compatible and functional.
Okay. Was there one more question or comment?
It was actually a comment. You wanna, the part you want me to do, you wanna do it on the meeting we were at today, and I was at yesterday on the community,
You want to say something about it, but we need to wrap
well,
up.
the highlights, in my opinion, were this new guy, not new guy, a new book he put out, Jim McConnell, put out Waiting for the Train. His talk about Amtrak is one of the best I've seen. He wasn't there yesterday. They showed the high-speed TGV that was on the internet 2 years ago, where they did 574.8 kilometers an hour. And on the big screen, it looked a lot better than on the internet. The other high point was Walt Stringer today on Sprinter. He's a rail fan and also works for them, and I thought that was the highlight. And there were a couple other things, but I'll just stop with those. A lot of stuff about high-speed rail. So that was a major thing. That covers